basically the ball is essentially in the court of the Maryland Department of the Environment right now. They had been analyzing the data from the pilot test that the hospital conducted last year. And really, on the advice of our counsel, Michael Forlini, he suggested that we contact MDE and ask for a meeting, basically to get an update on what their thoughts were on the permit moving forward. And to that end, I received an email from Chris Ralston, who's the program administrator of the oil control program at MDE. He came up with the date of Tuesday, June 30th of last week as the date that they could all come meet in town hall. The email that he sent was basically just to me. So I replied to him, hey, would it be okay if I brought, Bob Sipes and Bill Ingersoll and perhaps our attorney, because they really know a lot more about this than I do, and they said sure. Unfortunately, when that date was conveyed to Bob, he had already had vacation scheduled for that week, so it was not at all intentional that Bob was not there. That is ridiculous. I would have loved Bob to have been there. I did ask Bill if he could maybe chat with Bob to make sure that we did our best to reiterate the concerns that he has expressed to both us, MDE, and the hospital in the past, and that's basically what we did. I want to make it clear that right now MDE basically has the authority to give this permit to the hospital. So if we hadn't had this meeting, they could still give the permit without us meeting with them. So the fact that they were willing to come to Chestertown, we thought was a good thing. From our perspective, we had three main goals. One was basically to feel out where they were with the process in terms of the permit and what they thought about the pilot test. Secondly, we wanted to take that opportunity to reiterate our concerns that we had with the Ivysol surfactant method. And thirdly, we wanted to ask for a meeting that we have been asking for a long time, where MDE and the hospital would come to us and basically present the plan that they're formulating to try to close this spill out. The meeting lasted well over 2 hours, and so I don't want to rehash the whole thing. Bill did take pretty detailed notes, typed them up, and sent them to the council members, and I assume you guys all received them. But I do want to just kind of give a summary while we're sitting here taping the meeting. And basically the quick summary is the MDE feels that the use of Ivysol to clean up this spill showed a lot of promise in the pilot test. And they are moving forward, developing a plan to allow the hospital to continue using Ivysol to get whatever remains in the ground in a state that it can be pumped out using the hospital's pump and treat system. When they basically gave us that indication, we kind of launched again into all the concerns that we've listed in the past. I've listed a few of them here, and I have copies of this for you guys in the press if you'd like some. Take these over. A couple more. So among our concerns, and again, this meeting lasted a pretty long time, so I'm summarizing. We had concerns that there is an apparent lack of a comprehensive site analysis or site characterization, I believe Bob described it as, where basically we haven't seen from them that they really know exactly where the remaining contaminants are in the ground, what level of the water table or the substrate they're located on, and how can they close out a spill when they can't really show us a map of where the product that's left is even located. So that's something that we brought up again and again. We wanted to ensure that if the hospital is allowed to inject Ivysol into these wells, that during the entire process, we want them to maintain hydrological control by ensuring that the pump system that is currently used to keep the contaminants contained is kept on throughout the entire process. Basically, something that Bob's brought up numerous times is that if you think about a well as a cylinder going into the ground, only the bottom 10 feet or so is open with a screen. So if you're injecting Ivysol all the way to the bottom of the well, how is that going to clean up contaminants that may be lodged above that level of where the Ivysol is being injected? we brought up the fact that if you're injecting this product into the wells, it may do a phenomenal sight of cleaning the area around the well, so that when you go back to test later at those wells, it might have a very clean reading, when in fact there's space between the wells that may not be nearly as clean. How are they going to address that? And then we brought up, okay, let's say there's a worst case scenario and you free up all these contaminants and they escape the hydrological cone of depression and they start migrating downhill to our wells and they contaminate our wells. What assurances can you give us that somebody is going to be waiting there with a $10 million check to allow us to dig new wells if that comes to pass, whether it's a month down the road, a year down the road, or a decade down the road, or more? And lastly, if the hospital moves forward, injects the Ivysol, cleans up the site, MDE gives them a clean bill of health, and closes out the spill, we wanted assurances that they would continue monitoring this site for several years after the site is officially closed out, to make extra sure that they didn't miss something and that those contaminants aren't leaking downhill towards our drinking water. I asked this guy, Horatio Tablata, the Deputy Secretary of MDE, are you not required by law to have a public hearing about this permit? He said no. I was really surprised. And then I said, would you come to a public meeting to present the plan to us so that the council has a chance to hear it directly from you and ask you questions? And he said, yes, we'd be willing to do that. And I said, would you be willing to allow members of our community to come to the meeting and also ask questions? Because I know there's a lot of residents that are very concerned about this, as are we. And he said, yes. Unfortunately, the date that they gave us is next Tuesday, July 14th at 6 o'clock on the second floor of Town Hall. My primary concern when he gave me that was, can we all make it? And as far as I know, we all as council members can attend. I do understand it would be much better if they gave us 30 days and we could go out and beat down the bushes and get everybody to come, but that's the date that they gave us. And as I said, they're really driving this bus. And my job, I felt, was to get us a seat on the bus. And that's the seat they gave us, next July 14th at 6 o'clock, second floor of Town Hall. So if the press can help get the word out, that would be great. I'm sure we can do the same through our website by posting it at Town Hall. I know it's only 8 days from now. So the way that I'm hoping this will go, they also said they would get us a paper copy or perhaps an email copy that we could print out before that meeting. So I'm assuming that means this week.
Copy of the plan.
The plan. I have yet to see the plan. So if you're going to ask me if they've addressed all of our concerns, I can't tell you the answer because I have not seen the plan.
Has Bob seen it?
Nobody's seen the plan. So we'll be seeing the plan a couple days before this meeting. Yeah.
They did actually have the next stage of the plan in their pilot study response.
Okay.
When they submitted the pilot study information, it included
That's right.
the next phase. So it was incorporated in there, but we don't know what's been changed and what hasn't.
I mean, these requests aren't unreasonable.
Oh, I agree. I agree. We'll see if they get addressed, and if they don't, I'm not sure what our recourse will be, but we'll think it's something. I will say that this has cost the town thousands of dollars already. We've already closed our most productive shallow water well a couple of decades ago when the site was first contaminated. We spent tens of thousands of dollars in consultant and legal fees to try to get ourselves up to speed. So this is not an uncostly procedure for us, even though we're really not in the driver's seat for what ultimately gets done. So it's just a tough situation. They were like, well, what, do you guys have a better idea? And I said, well, if you ask Bob Sipes or if you ask me, I would say keep the pump and treat system on for another 50 years. And their response in a nutshell was, look, that really has run the course of its effective life, and it's really not, it's basically pulling groundwater out of the ground with, very little contaminants in it. And what's really left, the vast majority of what's left, isn't really in a recoverable state. So I also said, what if they do this remediation and there's still some oil in the ground? And they basically said, and I thought this was really interesting, we're never gonna get 100% of this out of the ground. And we may close this out, knowing that there's still some contaminants in the ground, as long as we feel confident that that doesn't pose a threat to human health down the road. And that, to me, is kind of where the rubber meets the road, because I think there's gonna always be a difference of opinion between what we think is acceptable and what maybe the hospital MDE thinks is acceptable.
I would feel more comfortable with, I think they're right, you're never gonna get it all out of the ground. But I would feel a lot more comfortable about that if we had some financial safeguards.
I couldn't agree more.
And I thought his response, as reflected in Bill's minutes of the meeting, was very weak on that point. And I don't know how we can push
I'll
that.
tell you specifically, we asked that there could be a consent order or that there be bonding in the, up to $10 million for us in the future if we're harmed. And they said, well, we don't write that up in our closeouts. That's not what we do. But that's what we need to do.
Ask them if they.
In the minutes of the meeting, just reading the synopsis, there's double talk in there.
I saw the same thing.
And when they shut that down for 10 months last time, they said the oil's not gonna move. When they shut it down 10 months last time, they had 4 inches of oil on one of the monitoring wells. It still moves. It's ridiculous to think that in the last 2 years, all of a sudden, the oil became immobile. If there's 4 inches of oil in a monitoring well, it is in that area. It doesn't just go to the monitoring well, it is spread out throughout the top of that aquifer. So there is still oil there that is mobile and waiting for those pumps to be shut off.
And if it comes to the event that they close the site out, but there's still oil there, and it starts migrating towards our wells, will we be able to detect that? I mean, through our water quality tests and things like that?
What we'll have to do is increase our frequency for analysis in wells or VOCs. And not just the diesel range organics that they want to test for, but the gasoline range organics, which is what this stuff is morphing into. The largest detects of contaminants, individual contaminants on the site after the Ibusol injection were gasoline range organics, which MDE is looking to, that hospital has asked not to test for. They don't want to test for the things that are there. They want to test for the things that they haven't picked up. DRO is diesel range organics. That's what they want to test for. GRO is gasoline range organics. That's what the xylenes and the benzenes are that they are picking up. So there's a lot going on up there. All it takes is for one of those constituents to get to one of our wells, and MDE will be the first ones to come in and condemn that well.